Good morning. I'm getting this on here really late. I've had a really busy morning, but I wanted to do this really quick. Oh, that's at a weird angle. I hope you guys are doing well. It's Wednesday. Um, I wanted to do just this one. Oh my, I thought if I put my hair in a ponytail, it wouldn't be all crazy. It's still crazy. Uh, Very short, just to discuss on page 3, the 3 estates. And just in that, and this will be really short, but it is important again that you watch. So on page 3, we ended the lecture the other day with the French culture, the domination of the French culture. And that discussion is important because what's going to happen in France, again, will impact the entire continent. And in order for that to happen, France had to be influential, and they were. So the next thing we're going to look at is this little separate side issue, and it is called the 3 estates. The Estates General is the French equivalent of Congress or Parliament. That's what it's called. It's the Estates General. It doesn't have anything to do with houses or estates or the military. It's called just the Estates General. And they're divided into 3 parts. First estate, second estate, third estate. That's really simple. And the most important thing is that each of those estates has 1 vote. No matter how many people are in there, there's 1 vote. And then we'll see why that 1 vote is important when we look at what each estate is made up of. College Board, if they ask you anything about the French Revolution, it is about this stuff. It's about these 3 estates. So first, before we even get into the notes, let's make sure we know what each estate is. And I remember this alphabetically. First estate, clergy, C. Second estate, nobility, N. Third estate is peasants and everybody else. I just put the P for peasants, but it's everybody else. So clergy, nobility, everybody else. But if you want to put the peasants, so it's alphabetical, okay? So the first estate is the clergy, less than 1% of the population, okay? It is, again, the Catholic Church of France, which is France's relationship with the Catholic Church is a little bit different because they get to do things that other countries don't. Like they get to appoint their own cardinal, they get to appoint their own bishops. So let's look at number 1B, 1A. Less than 1% of the population, they own 20% of the land. So again, that's a skew, right? They're exempt from taxes. So they own 20% of the land, but pay no taxes on that land. And that's important when we start talking about bankruptcy and money. Most of the church's income was drained away from local parishes by political appointees, high-ranking aristocrats. So the parish, which is the community of the church that collects the tithes, most of those tithes didn't stay with the parish, right? And knowing the hierarchy of the Catholic Church didn't even go to the diocese where it filters up. It completely left that area. However, conditions of the church and the position of the clergy had been exaggerated. Again, we have to talk about all these things. The French church levied the tithe on all agricultural products. So the tithe is not just put money in the bucket when it goes by. We're also going to put a tithe on your agricultural products. Bishops in England and France, again, played a part in government affairs, like Cardinal Richelieu, who will be a part of Louis's political circle. He's a cardinal, right? And that, again, is important. And that will be, so that's first estate. Less than 1%, 20% of the land. Second estate is the nobility. They're 2 to 4% of the population, and they own 25% of the land. So 45% of the land in France is not taxed. So who do you think is going to make up the rest of all those taxes? That becomes the problem. Nobility, again, do not pay taxes. And if they are taxed or fined anything, what they do is pass the buck. So as a noble, if I have any kind of money or monetary contribution that I have to make to anybody, the church, the king, They send me the bill. You owe, and it's in this time period, they're called SAOs, SAOU, which is a weird word. So I owe 1,500 SAO to the church. I'm just going to turn around, I'm physically turning around to my peasants back here and say, I need to collect a fine on this, and I need to collect a tariff on this, and I need a tithe on this. And so I'm going to get my 1,500 SAO from my peasants and then pay. So even if I'm taxed anything, it doesn't come out of my pocketbook. I'm going to tax the people behind me. And then the third estate is everybody else, right? Consisted of a few rich merchants, professionals, the middle class, the artisans, unskilled workers, and peasants. So still really think of the third estate as peasants, because that's the largest population that are part of that estate, the third estate. They bore the vast majority of the tax burden. The Tau, and these are all French words, so I don't know if I'm pronouncing them correctly. The Tau is the land tax, so they pay a tax on land. The church doesn't pay a land tax. Nobility doesn't pay a land tax, but the peasants pay a land tax. They pay a tithe. And again, you have to sort of take your mind out of 21st century church, where the tithe is a responsibility as a church member, but it's not a requirement. Like, you don't have a set number. Like, well, maybe your family does, but it's something your family sets, not the church coming knocking on your door and saying, hey, you didn't put your $200 in the plate this week. So that's the difference. They pay an income tax. They pay a poll tax. They pay a salt tax, which is really a tax on salt. On the top of page 4, peasants had to honor feudal obligations such as land and taxes and fees. Peasants owned 40% of the land in France, and that 40% pays all of the taxes. It buys Louis Versailles. It buys Marie Antoinette her gowns. It buys the 4 carriages and the 15 white horses. The second estate would also tax the peasantry to put their money in their pockets. There's also this thing called the corvée, established that peasants were obligated to work for nobles several times a year without pay. Nobles enjoyed hunting rights, and they could hunt on the peasants' land. So remember, we have these game laws. So as a peasant, I can't hunt on noble lands. But guess what? Nobles can hunt on my land. Wonder why these people are going to get mad in a couple of years about all this? The bourgeoisie demanded that political and social power be congruent. There's a geometry word, congruent, with the emerging economic power. Resented the first and second estates, who held all political and social power, all of it. They have all of it, and wanted the reduction of privileges. And they hated the letters of decachet, which is, I think, letters in a notebook. I don't know what that means, which means government or king could imprison anyone at any time without any charges or any trial. That is an amazing amount of power. It is a tremendous amount of power that the peasants resented. So if part of the third estate, and those third estate members that were attorneys, that were well versed in the law, decided to bring an issue in front of the Estates General and call for, I think the nobles should pay a tax. What do you think the vote's going to be? Nobles and the clergy will band together and vote no. The third estate will vote yes. And so always and forever, the votes are always 2-1. Doesn't matter what it is. 2 yes, 1 no. 2 no's, 1 yes. And there's never going to be a way for anything to change. The other last side of that I would write by your notes is only the king can call the Estates General. Only the king. They don't meet regularly. And so the entire time that Louis XIV was king, he never called the Estates General. Ever. Ever. The first mistake Louis is going to make in losing his head from his shoulders will be he calls into order the Estates General. And that is when all the poo-poo hits the fan. All right, so that's it. That was really short, 10 minutes. But please make sure you watch them because that's a really important part of understanding how all of this is going to work. All right, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you tomorrow, Thursday, and the sun is finally shining in. All right, we'll see you on Thursday. Bye, guys.